Welcome to Java programming. In this video, we will be discussing about what is layout manager in Java Swing graphical user interface design. The layout manager is basically a predefined rules or algorithm by which the user interface elements like button, text boxes and radio button, so many other components will be displayed in the frame window. So when we create a frame window, every frame window is called as a container to hold the text boxes, button and other components. So when we are adding the components in the container, how it will be placed, in which location it will be placed, how it is arranged. This arrangement is done by a predefined algorithm called layout manager. So in Java, we have three types of layout managers. First one is flow layout. The next one is border layout. Next one is grid layout. So here, when we are creating a JFrame window using a Java Swing package, JFrame window component, by default, this window component has its own layout manager. For frame window, the default layout manager is border layout. So if you want to change from border layout to flow layout or flow layout to grid layout, we can use set layout method. By using that, we can change. We'll discuss one by one with one small program example. First, we'll start with the flow layout. So flow layout class is used to arrange the components in a row ways, or we can say it is a line in first line. So it will be coming in the flow, right? How the flow is actually coming in the two dimensions, like in the screen. So it is actually stacked vertically line by line, flow layout. Once the first line is completed, it will go to second line. So it is actually arranged in a row wise, right? So when you resize the window, the components will be self adjusted and it will be relocated. So we can create for flow layout by using a constructor called flow layout constructor. So here you can see the constructor structure. So this is a constructor. So this one we can use flow layout. And if you want to give alignment, we can use this flow layout constructor. If you want to give alignment and horizontal gap and vertical gap, we can use this constructor. So alignment you can use flow layout dot left, flow layout dot right, flow layout dot center. For example, this is an example how to understand what is flow layout. If you add so many buttons in a frame window, the button will be first it will be placed in the first line. Okay, line number 1. This is the first line. Okay, and next it will be placed in line number 2. So like this, line by line, the components will be placed. When we resize the window also, it will be self relocated. Now let's see one example how to understand this flow layout. We'll create one Java class flow. Just put flow as a title. Main function we have to include. So inside we need to import one package called java.awt package. That is very important for working with the layout. Then we need to use java x.swing for creating a frame window. So these two packages enough. AWT package is used for including the flow layout, and x.swing package is to create a JFrame window. So let's create one JFrame window. JFrame frame equal to new JFrame. Within bracket we can write a window. Just put some title. And as usual, we have to set the size of the frame window by using set size. Let's try this 500 comma 400. Then frame we can display by using set visible true. And to deal with closing, we can use set default close operation jframe dot exit on close. Then the next important thing is setting the layout. Okay, how to setting the layout. So to set the layout, we need to use set layout method. So frame dot set layout. I want to use a flow layout. So we can create one object for flow layout inside this argument, and we can pass the object flow layout, right? Now to understand this, I am going to add one set of buttons. I'm going to add some 25 buttons. So we can create a for loop for int I equal to 0, I less than 26. 25 means 26. 25, yes, 25 is enough. I plus plus. So this will create 25 buttons, right? So otherwise we'll start with the 1 and we'll go up to 25. Now I'm going to create a button J button, btn equal to new J button. Inside you can create a button name like this, I. Okay, so you'll be getting button 1, button 2, button 3. Whenever I is changing, the corresponding name will be coming. Now we can add this button inside the frame window by calling btn, by calling add function frame dot add. So this will add 25 button. So now we can see how flow layout is working. When we execute this program, now you can see 25 buttons added, right? And when I resize, look at this, look at the arrangement, the flow layout arrangement is the button is placed in the first line and line by vertically, right? So when we resize, so there is no place for button 3, so the button 3 automatically relocated to the next row. So if there is no place in the container is the frame window, so it will relocate to the next line. So that is called as flow layout, right? So when we resize, automatically all the components is self adjusted. Okay, so that's what flow layout. Now let's close this. Next we'll understand the next layout manager. Next layout is border layout. So border layout is actually the default layout for the frame window. And here in this border layout is working based on a region wise. There are 5 regions. One is north, south, east, west, and center. So its region means area wise. So in the frame window, there are you can assume 4 sides, including center. Center is one of the side. Okay, so there is a north side, south side, east side, and west and center. Okay, so based on this side region, the component will be placed. So we can use border layout constructor for creating a border layout, and this border layout provides 5 constants for each region. First one is border layout north, border layout dot south, border layout dot east, border layout dot west, border layout dot center. Okay, so if you want to keep any component in north side, we have to use border layout dot north. If you want to keep it in center, we have to use border layout dot center. So for example, look at this example. Here I have created set layout, new border layout. So then I am adding 5 buttons, one in north, one in west side, one in center side, so one in east side, one in south side. Okay, let's see how to do this example. Okay, and if you want to give some gap also, we can use gap like this 10 comma 10. If you give some gap, you will be getting. Let's see one example. So we'll change the we'll change the same program. So in this frame dot set layout, instead of this flow layout, we can use border layout. Now I'm going to add buttons. First I'm going to create one button. B1 is equal to new button. button, I want to place it in a north side. So the button hyphen north, this is north, right? So now so frame dot, how to add it? Frame dot add of b1. Now when we are adding only, we need to set the region. So b1 comma, we can set the region border layout dot north, right? So now we can see how this is coming. Okay, by execute the program. Now look at this. Button is coming in the north side of the frame window. This is the north side as per the design. Look at this, north side button is created. Okay, now the same way I want to create another button, J button, B2 J button in south side, the opposite of north, south side, the below. Okay, bottom I want to keep one button. So we can use frame dot add b2 comma border layout dot south. So after placing south side, now the output will be changing. Now we can see the output like this. Look at this. Now in the north side one button, south side in another button is coming. Okay. Now left side and right side there is no button. So left side is actually the region is west side. Left side is west. Right side is east. So we can create. We can just copy this and we can change the location of the button. So I have created just replicated B3 button. B3 button I want to keep it left side, so it is west. So it is a west side, and B4 button I want to keep it east side. So we can, the constant we have to change as east, and this is B4. So now we can check the output. So look at this, will be coming like this. So one button is there, and this is another button, and this is another button. Center place is empty, right? So inside in center place we can add other components. So what we can do is we can create one more button and we can place it in center. Okay, let's see how it is. B5 B5, and this is center button. Okay, center location. Okay, so we have to use center as a constant value, border layout dot center. So that component will be coming in the center. So now this is called border layout. Okay, so in the region wise the button component will be placed. If you want to give some gap when we are adding that, if you want to give some gap when we are adding border layout, new border layout, we can give a horizontal gap and vertical gap. For example, I'm going to give 10 comma 10. So if you give 10 comma 10, what will happen? We'll be getting a gap between the buttons. So now when resize, look at this, some gap we are getting, right? So like using this gap we can adjust the component, and here I have demonstrated only button. We can create text boxes, we can create radio button, any component we can display here like this, right? So this is about border layout, how to display a border layout based on a region base. So I'll close this output. Let's go back to that PPT. Go for a next type called grid layout. So grid layout is actually basically similar to a table format, like a row and columns. It will arrange the components in a rectangle grid. The rectangle grid is similar to a matrix, row and column basis, table format. So here we have a grid layout constructor is there. We can use grid layout constructor with rows. Number of rows we can specify, number of columns we can specify, right? So if you are using the first one, you'll get grid layout with one column and one row. One column per component in a row. So if you are not mentioning the rows and columns, suppose if you are adding a 10 buttons, you'll get 10 rows. Each row one button will be displayed. That is called the default grid layout. If you specify rows and columns, it will behave as per the rows and columns. We can also give horizontal gap, vertical gap also we can give. Now let's see how to create a grid layout. So like this, set layout, new grid layout, we can give number of rows, number of columns. We'll get like this. If I give 4 comma 4, 4 rows will get this 1, this is 2, this is 3, 4 columns and 4 rows. If you want to give some gap, vertical gap, horizontal gap, we can give the third argument is a horizontal gap, fourth argument is a vertical gap, right? Let's see one example to understand this. So here the same example, I'm going to delete these components and frame dot set layout. Here I'm going to set the layout as grid layout, and the number of rows I'm going to assume 4 comma 4 and column is 4. So 4 comma 4 I can display, I can show 4 into 4 16 buttons I can create by using a for loop int I equal to 1, I less than or equal to 16, I plus plus. So now we can create a button inside this for loop and we can add one by one. btn equal to new j button plus number we can put by using this I variable, then frame dot add btn. So now the button is added. 16 buttons we are going to place it in the grid layout, right? So now 16 button I am going to place. So since we have set 4 rows 4 columns, so first row 4 buttons will be displayed and second row 4 buttons, third row 4 button, fourth row 4 button. Now let's see the output. Look at this, the design look like this, button is coming in. Okay, so even if we maximize also, the grid layout will span the entire space and the entire space is divided as grid and the component will occupy each column. Okay, the available space. Here you can use not only button, you can use text boxes also. So if you want to give some gap, horizontal gap, you can give some gap like this. So 10, otherwise we'll give 15 comma 15. So 15 is a horizontal gap, vertical gap is another 15. So when we execute this, now see that you'll get a gap between button, space between the button you'll get. So like this we can customize the space between the components. So this is about grid layout. Basically grid layout is to create a table kind of design and components can be placed in any places. Suppose if I am giving a some more components, 25 components. Okay, so 25 components if I am giving, will be the last row can be single or one or two elements will become. Now look at this, look like this. We'll be getting a gap over here. So if I am giving a 25 buttons, if I am adding, so you'll be getting the, it will be coming like this. Okay, right, and it will be changing. Okay, because we are giving a wrong number of buttons, right? So it will be self adjusted. First row it will occupy 7 buttons, the number of buttons will change. Okay, So as per the number of columns and number of rows, we have to decide the button. Okay, how many components you want it. Otherwise, the design will be go for default grid layout behavior. Okay, now see that we are getting 4 buttons in each row. Okay, as per our settings. Right, so that's all about layout managers in Java Swing graphical user interface application design. We have discussed about flow layout, border layout and grid layout.